All right, we are back. Episode number 2. This is fun. We've had a fun week. It's been a bit of a crazy week, as they seem like they all are this season. Got a really fun, exciting guest for you guys today. Really looking forward to that. Jay, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little hungry right in this exact moment, but otherwise I'm good. Anything noteworthy from this last week for you?
It seems like the Avs are still going up and down,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like they're getting closer to the playoffs, and I mean they're going to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be my first playoff. So that's going to be very interesting for me to
They're looking forward to that.
experience that and to see how differently they're going to play in something like a playoff rather than a competition.
Yeah, and you actually just heard us talk about it earlier. NHL playoffs, for my money, are the best playoffs pro sports anywhere. So I'm very much looking forward to you getting to experience that for the first time. Lots of fun stuff to talk about. Lots of interesting, just lots of interesting stuff always going on. I'm been a fan of Alex Ovechkin since he came into the league. It's upsetting for me that we are entering the point of their career where Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby are winding it down, because it's a true sign of my age that these are all-time greats, all-time legends that I watched from the time they were rookies, they were drafted, all the way through to now. Their career is winding down. Alex Ovechkin has picked up the pace here a bit, up to 16 goals on the season, and that puts him 56 goals away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. There's been a down year for Alex Ovechkin, but I think 30 is still on the table for him. If he can get 14 more goals this season, he's got just shy of 30 games to do it, 20-something games to do it. That puts him 42 away going into next year, and that is, I feel like, the first time. He'd have to have a bounce back, obviously, and he's only getting older, but that'll be the first time that I feel like we are going into a season where you're on record watch. And I get people out there that don't like Ovechkin, all the geopolitical stuff that's going on right now that people don't. I get all of that. You don't have to be a fan of every player, and you don't have to support every player, but I do think it is fascinating, and I hope that I get to see a record like Wayne Gretzky's goal record fall, because those are records that you always thought would be untouchable. Have you looked into I think you and I did talk about Wayne Gretzky's production, yeah?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I looked up I saw some stat online about, I think it was Tom Brady, like how many MVP awards he's gotten and everything, and then comparing that to Wayne Gretzky, and it's like it's not even close. Like there's nothing that comes close to him.
No player. Look, I argue with people about, it's hard to argue eras, right? Because the way the game was played was so different. But like, you can argue. I do believe that you can argue best player as terms of most skilled, most talented player that's ever played hockey. No athlete in any sport, I think, will be as dominant as Wayne Gretzky was. He was so far ahead of his peers. It was crazy, and that's why I think the fact that there's even the potential that Alex Ovechkin can make it to one of those records, and we could see one of those records fall, I just think that'd be an amazing sports history thing to see. So I'm hoping Ovechkin can finish out hot this year. He's on a nice little tear here, going to next year, and give us something to kind of look forward to and see if he can do it. If not next year, you're hard on record watch 2 seasons from now. So we'll see. It's been a tough year for him. It's easily been his worst offensive year, but he's rolling a bit. We were just in D.C., I believe, 2 weeks ago now. First time in D.C. It was fun being out there, getting to see the sights. I was big into House of Cards, like seasons 1 through 3. It started going downhill season 4, season 5, and then all the Kevin Spacey stuff happened, and they kicked him off the show, and they should have just ended the show. They should have just not kept it going, and it should have been like this. That sucks. We're not, the show's done now. But they tried to like, they like in a very lazy way wrote him off. Like episode 1, they're like, can you believe he died? Anyways, and they just kept the show moving, and it was terrible. But watching the first few seasons of that show really, really got me interested in, because the whole thing obviously takes place in DC. So I've always wanted to go see the site, so that was awesome to get to do. The city was really spread out, so that kind of sucked. And like the Washington Monument and the U.S. Capitol are both on the National Mall. Well, the National Mall is just a big open area, so you stand in front of one, you look at the other, they're massive structures, you're like, oh, it's right there. And it takes you like 20 minutes to walk there. But so, we were in D.C. as part of that long trip, and then I just actually came back from Detroit over the weekend. What an arena. I was actually thinking about you guys the whole time there because I was there by myself. Absolutely beautiful. It would have been an experience that you guys would have all liked. Best media meal by a mile.
Ooh.
Best media meal by a mile.
What did you eat?
Dude, so they had, I'm not big on Indian food, but it was being made fresh right there, so I tried a couple things there. They had like a whole section that was just like kind of stadium food. Chicken tenders, fries, hot dogs, hamburgers. They had pizza. Little Caesars is the primary sponsor of, they're the naming rights sponsor. They're really big in Detroit. So they had pizza. They had a huge salad bar. And then they just had kind of like, a more like kind of traditional grilled chicken breast, mashed. Like it was the options that were amazing. It was the fact that, there was something for everyone, whatever you liked. Big, nice dessert spread. And it got me thinking, I've been to 28 arenas this season. I've been to 29 NHL arenas in total, 30 if you count the old Arizona Coyotes arena that they're not playing in anymore. Been very fortunate to get to see a couple games overseas. I've been to a lot of rinks. The new Detroit arena might be the nicest one I've been to. Genuinely. It was outstanding. They have a whole... the concourse, like the main area where you walk, it has a frosted glass roof. So it feels kind of like you're outside. And then the whole exterior is like brick, and they kind of made it look in a certain portion. Like it's where the offices are for the team, and it's like balconies and greenery and stuff. A totally fresh feel. And I think it's between that and Seattle for what I think are the nicest arenas in the league. And just kind of got me thinking. I've been very fortunate to see a lot. What are my top 5 NHL arenas that I've been to? So I got the 2 I just listed, Detroit, Seattle. Both new, beautiful. They nailed it on both of those. Vegas, another newer one. And Vegas has the best in-game experience, no doubt. They do it up like a Vegas show. It's great. Madison Square Garden. How can you not have Madison Square Garden? And then Montreal, old arena, Bell Center, but you could feel the history and the kind of the story, of everything that's kind of played out there. You went to Seattle? You went to Seattle with me?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, and it's all state of the art.
Yeah, it's so crazy because it's built into the ground basically.
Yes, yeah.
So you get into the stadium and you walk down instead of up.
Right.
And then, everything is just new. Mm-hmm. And I haven't been to Vegas, so I can't talk about that in-game experience. But I talked about the Colorado Avalanche in-game experience, like the pre-show and all that. That's fun. That's fun. But it's the same thing every time. It's like, okay. And then you go to Seattle, and you just feel the rumbling in that whole stadium.
Yeah, there's... what I like about markets like Vegas and Seattle is they're still in that phase where they're having to win over a fan base, and they're having to create new fans every day. So you have to have a good experience. You have to make people want to come back, and I'm with you. You can feel the difference.
Yeah.
And so those are my arenas. But the other thing that I really have discovered this year, like a nice shower in a hotel. The hotel room itself, the hotel, whatever. I want and really even it's a nice shower head. There's a lot of these showers a lot of these hotels that I'm going to, low pressure, and they have heat regulators on the nozzle, so it can only get like warm. And I hate that. That ruins the hotel experience. I do also like a nice walkable city. Even it being Detroit, it was very walkable where I was at. Get to the arena, get to all the sites. So those are some things I've kind of discovered about myself as a traveler this year. It was also really weird. There's not a lot of close hotels to the Detroit arena, so we actually stayed at the MGM Detroit, like the MGM Grand Detroit. And it was really weird because it felt very similar to the one in Vegas in terms of like aesthetics. But like the Wednesday night crowd at the MGM Grand Detroit is very different than the crowd at the MGM Grand in Vegas. And it was just this like really weird sensory, like my brain and my eyes are telling me Vegas, but then like as I take things in, it's very much not. So it was just kind of weird.
Do you travel a lot for like leisure too? Because I'm curious how different it is to travel for work, where you have a few hours where you're staying close to the stadium, or a vacation where you can rent a car, where you can just do more stuff. Okay,
so my wife and I have a vacation, small, quick little vacation coming up soon, and this year has actually changed me. I like to be as walkable as possible. I don't want to get in Ubers, and I haven't always been like that, but now this year, with the travel that we've been doing, and all of, what you were just saying, like it's a little bit different. It has kind of jaded me on like, if I can't walk there, I don't really want to do it. I'll get an Uber if I have to, but I prefer if I can walk. It's crazy. On that trip in Detroit, we had someone in the post game scrum ask Avalanche head coach Jared Bednar, hey, you guys only have 25 games left. And it just, it hit me in a weird way. Like, holy smokes, we are in it. We're in the back half of this. We're barreling towards the end of the season. That means trade deadline is coming up. This has been an interesting stretch here for the NHL. And I'm going to say this, and before we even get this posted, there will be a big trade that happens. But quiet on the trade fronts, like not a lot of rumors, not a lot of chatter. There's some names out there, but really it's a bunch of stuff that's kind of up in the air, and it's just leading to a weird run up to the deadline. I don't really know what to expect. There's plenty of teams, the Avs being one of them. I'm expecting are going to make moves, but just nobody really has. I think the flat cap in the NHL, you and I were just talking with Romi Bean, our guest coming up, earlier, and saying it's maybe led to more parity than ever in the NHL this year. You have teams like Colorado, Edmonton, Tampa, Carolina, Vegas, all benefiting from the fact that it seems like the flat cap has caught up a bit. Nobody's really pulling away. It doesn't seem like there's any one team that it's like, this is the team to beat. They're going to load up. And it's kind of led to this weird up and down product across the league. I'm anxious to see how it plays out because this feels unlike years past where there's chaos around this time of year. There's all kinds of guys being traded, all kinds of guys being moved. And it just hasn't been that way. So it's been a quiet run up. I keep getting questions, people, writing in, hey, what's going on? What are they going to do? Nothing. They're going to do something. The Avs are going to do something. The league is just quiet all around, though. There's not a lot of hot rumors out there. And again, I'm partially doing this because I know as soon as we're done editing this, a big trade will be made. So I'm helping the cause. But just been a quiet run up, and I think we're going to have a really interesting playoffs because I don't think there's any one team that is clear. The buzzsaw. The Avs are going to be getting Val Nichushkin back here over the next week or two. And I think that kind of gives them a different dynamic. I really don't know what to expect, but I'm looking forward to the run up here.
How's that for you as a reporter when
it's terrible?
Usually, there's so much stuff to talk about, so many things to cover. You're going to practice, you're interviewing the new player, you're interviewing the coach about the new player.
Yep.
None of that.
Well, and it's not only that, but like we're not even getting like any rumor content out of it this year. Because you usually have at least 2 weeks of real heavy. Oh, this is what this team was tied to this guy. Ooh, they're looking into this dude. Whatever. It's just kind of quiet. And then here's why it sucks. Here's why it's terrible. They'll all come in at once. They'll all come in at once, and we'll kind of have this 48 hours of crazy news heavy, and then it'll kind of go away. So I wish that they would be more courteous to us in the media and give us more to talk about in the weeks leading up.
I'll tell my wife that I won't be home for dinner those days.
Yeah, they're a little crazy. I'm also I'm anxious for you to you're kind of getting thrust into the crazy part of this season, and it's always fun. What do you got for us this week?
I want to talk about the PWHL.
Love it.
Because we're halfway to season.
Yep.
So I just want to see from you what you think about the league, how it's going.
Yep.
And there's 2 reasons why I want to talk about this. We're halfway to season, so we can see a little bit how it's going. But 2, they beat the biggest attendance for a women's hockey game.
Yes, I saw that.
For the 3rd time in this little season already.
Mm-hmm. I think they've done a great job with what they needed to do in the first year. I think there was, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think there was a massive education process that they were facing. You were having to show everybody we have a really high quality product that we can put on the ice that's been diluted in the past by these 2 leagues competing with each other, by those 2 leagues kind of splitting everything in half. It diluted the talent. It caused people to have to kind of pick which one do you want to support, which one do you want to watch. And I think the PWHL had a tall order this year of saying we have to show people that not only are we a unified league, that we do have the best players and that we do have a quality product. And I think there also was a little bit of like, we need to show people that we can put butts in seats. Because again, that was part of the issue with the lead up to this league, was that because of the way it was split in the past, the attendance was never really anything to write home about. And so I think it's been amazing that they've done exactly what they needed to do. At first, I didn't love that they were choosing to just go with PWHL and then city or state name. But in talking with some folks on the PWHL side, I actually do think it ended up being the right thing to do, because they said we didn't want to rush our branding. We didn't want to rush how we were going to market all of this. And, again, we had this conversation earlier. I think that's better. Take the time to do it right. Again, they got a product on the ice and they got all the players out there, and I think it's better for them to be out there in a jersey that just says Minnesota than to get it wrong with the team name or the colors or, whatever it is. I think the season has gone as good as they could have asked for the PWHL.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that they, like you said, they had those competitive leagues in the past, and now it looks like it's finally lining up.
Yeah. And
with a lot of women's sports, like, I want women's sports to succeed. It's very important.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, for example, with previous indoor volleyball leagues, indoor volleyball being the biggest sports among women in college, and an indoor league has never taken off professionally here, or they have and then they had to disband again. And the same kind of thing happened in hockey, and it feels like the buzz is different this year.
Yeah.
And that's because everyone is behind the same goal
thing
this time.
Yep.
And you also see that with the attendance, it's still going up. It would have been very easy to see the first games being sold out easily, and then people are like, okay, I've seen some games, cool, but it keeps going up.
Yeah, the fact, like you said, the fact they keep re-breaking the record, and then look, here is the other, and I don't know if this was something that you were kind of alluding to there with the volleyball thing. This league will cause the talent level to rise. I tell the story. I'm not going to get into specifics. There was an NHL player that I talked with who had a sister that played in college. Very good player. Was considered one of the top players in the country. And when we asked, we were talking to him, said, hey, is she going to pursue pro? This was before the PWHL officially formed. And he said, no, she's just going to get her degree. She's going to try for one Olympic cycle. And if she doesn't make the team, she's just going to, pursue the career, her degree career. And we were like, why? She's one of the top players in the country. Like, I'm sure there'd be pro teams falling all over to get her. And he was like, yeah, there's no money in it. There's no money.
Yeah.
She can make 5 times the amount doing what she is getting her degree in. And again, that was under the old 2-league system.
Yeah, they would earn like $10,000 a year.
Right. And so it's like, yeah, how can you expect to produce top talent? How can, because the top players that were playing in those leagues had other gigs. Like, they had other jobs. They were ambassadors in other areas of hockey, or they just had outright other full-time jobs. And so, what I'm excited for with the PWHL isn't even so much the next 2 years, but 10 years from now. The product on the ice is going to be so much better. It'll be an established league. You hope the NHL has gotten involved, at that time and, officially affiliated. But it's only good things for women's hockey and hockey in general. I'm a huge proponent of everyone should. I think hockey's an amazing sport. I think it's by far the best sport to watch live. I think that this will only equal more people getting into it.
Yeah, you're bringing up a lot of things that I wanted to talk about too.
Perfect.
So great. Because what I'm interested in is then how do you make it worth the while in the next few years? How do you make sure it doesn't just collapse again? Mm-hmm. And that is money, bringing in money.
Yeah.
Right now, the average salary in the league is about $55,000. You can pay
Live
a
off
mortgage.
that.
Yeah, you can pay your rent with that and live. The lowest ones are $35,000 though, so it's still not high enough to live in a lot of cities. But what else are you gonna do? Like, there's not just a lot of money suddenly.
Right.
So I looked a little bit into, like, because it's all owned by one group basically, by one guy, Mark Walter. Mm-hmm. I looked up his net worth just to see, like, how long could he keep doing this. Mm-hmm. He's got a net worth of $6 billion.
Right.
But more interesting is that he said that not him. It was actually one of the guys in his team basically.
His group,
yeah. They said, we're in it for the long haul. We're not doing it for short term. We're not doing it for long term. We're doing it to be permanent.
Yeah.
And it's a 10-year business plan. So, like you said, it's interesting to see how they're doing in 10 years, not next year.
Right.
And they also said, if we can't get it done in 10 years, the plan is just going to be longer than that.
Yeah.
And that feels like a very necessary thing to have.
100%.
Because if you have people in there that want to make money after 5 years and they don't, there you go. That's it.
Right.
But now you just have someone that says, I know we're not going to be able to make money in the first years. That's not what we're trying to do right now. It's an investment in the future.
And see, to me, as someone who, and I will openly admit, I'm not ultra educated on the logistics of the past pro leagues. But like what you're describing, like that's almost kind of, what it sounds like the ones were in the past. Well, we have the better league. We're gonna make this work, and we'll get some players in here. This feels like they're like, no, we're here to be the PWHL forever. The NHL celebrates 100-year anniversaries. We want to do the same thing, and it does. It feels like there's a long-term commitment. It feels like the players understand that it's it's about building and growing every single night and continuing to put fans in seats. And again, the NHL had said in the past, we're not picking sides. We are not getting involved until there's a unified league, because we are not going to be, the bad guy that picked to support this league and not this league. And so I do think eventually the NHL will get involved. There'll be an official affiliation there, money, revenue sharing, and stuff like that. And I think it's going to be great for the women's game. But it is still just going to be a long road to get there. They're still only at 6 teams. We've talked to Nicole Hensley this year among some other folks, and they've said we hope we can expand and things like that. So, like I said, I think this first year, from where I've sat and the people I've chatted with, I think it's gone as good as you can hope. And as long as you have that ownership group that's committed, I think it's going to keep getting better.
Yeah. And I think also in order for it to grow, it also kind of depends on people like us in the media to keep talking about this.
Yeah.
Like you said, you interviewed Nicole Hensley. You interviewed some more women
so we've
players.
got a couple more coming, yeah.
Exactly. You interviewed some more people at the All-Star game.
Yep.
But also, you got Romi Bean as a guest in this podcast today. I think it's very good to keep to lift the voices of the women in sports because they're so important, and they're still underrepresented. So that's also why I wanted to bring this up today, the PWHL, because it's important.
It's a good time. It's definitely important, and like, to your point, I was talking about it earlier from like the scope of it's important for hockey, but you are correct. It's important for sports, and it's important for people like Romi Bean, who is our guest today. This was an absolute blast. I didn't intend on keeping her here as long as we did, but she's just such an amazing person to chat with. I've gotten to know Romi Bean a bit over the last few years, working in this crazy industry, and we got to both cover the Avalanche Cup run together. And it's always a treat for me when I get to go on her show. So it was an extra special treat for me to have her come in here and kind of be able to return the favor and host her here in our studio. But as Jay was kind of alluding to, she has some unbelievable stories, including some great ones about, being a woman trying to crack into sports and how she had to shift her mentality to looking at herself as a person working in sports. And just, I had a blast chatting with her. I hope you guys enjoy it. Romi Bean, lead sports anchor for CBS Colorado. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, my next guest, you might know her as Denver's first lead sports anchor, or you might know her as the first person to ever wear an inflatable T-Rex costume on an NFL sideline. My good friend Romi Bean. Romi, thank you so much. You said it. I'm going to steal your line. It's Take Your Friends to Work Week.
I know. This has been the best week ever. I was lucky enough to have you on my show earlier in the week, just spitting that Avs knowledge that you know so well. And now I'm happy to be here. And honestly, I think the dinosaur is my biggest accomplishment, more so than the first lead woman main sports anchor. I can't even say it correctly.
I have to be 100%. I have to be 100% honest with you. I knew about the T-Rex thing before I knew you personally. And it wasn't until after we had chatted a few times. I think I'd even gone on your show, and you said something about it, like, "Oh yeah, the T-Rex, that was me." And I was like, "Are you like that?" I was like starstruck that you were the T-Rex.
There was like a moment in time where like everybody knew it was me, and then it's like a lot of time has passed, and there's a lot of people that don't know. And every Halloween I post about it, and people are like, "Wait, that was you?" And I was like, "Yes, my best moment!"
And I actually think that was how I discovered, was that I saw your post, like, "Oh man, I always love to call this one back," and I was like, "No way!" And I did. I felt very happy that I knew you. I knew the T-Rex.
Yeah,
it was really exciting.
Dino was my best moment.
Yeah, no, that's and we're gonna talk more about it. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Getting to know you, you have an amazing passion for sports. I've listened to a lot of the stuff you've done here, getting ready for this interview, and obviously just getting to know you. Where actually, I'm sorry, I almost messed up my own flow here. I start every interview with the same question.
Ooh, I love it.
Toilet paper, over or under?
Ooh. Hang on.
You got to think about it.
I got to think about this, and I feel like I know the answer. And I'm trying to think. I actually just broke the toilet paper holder in my bathroom, so I've been instead of fixing I just take it every day. So that's TMI.
No, but hey, everyone does it.
I think I'm an under.
You're an under. Ooh. So
Am I? Well,
does it roll off the top, or do you have to pull from the bottom?
No, it rolls off the top because I go this.
All right. So you're an over.
I'm an over. All
right, that was close.
I got to get that toilet paper thing fixed now that you're saying this, because I'm going like this with the roll, which is an over motion,
Which is an over motion.
Yes.
So you're good either way.
So if I said under, I'm out.
You're not out, but it's just I would have had to adjust, a little bit of what I think. So, thank goodness.
Crisis averted.
You have a great passion for sports. Where did that come from? Where did your love for sports and all that start?
I feel like two places. I have 4 older brothers, so there was kind of no hope for me. And I was just like a huge tomboy. Like I just wanted to play, in the street with the guys.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do girly things. My mom would like, every time she'd like buy me pants, I'd be like, they're too tight. So I'd like Jinko jeans, because it was like, I just like wanted to be with the guy. One of the funniest stories actually is I was like very young at the time. I was like 5.
Mm-hmm.
But we were like out with the neighborhood kids, and it was just me and all the neighborhood boys playing shirts for Skins. My mom walks outside and Romi with Skins.
How old were you?
I was like 5.
Oh, yeah.
So it's okay. But it's still, she was like, get in the house.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like a got teaching habits type of thing.
Gotta like learn that. But like
Yeah.
if the guys were playing,
Yeah.
I was in. If they said your Skins, I said, okay.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
I think everyone is young enough that it wasn't weird.
Yeah, no. That was why I double checked. 5, yeah, that's
Right. But so I grew up and I just always just wanted to, kind of be like my brothers and play sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my family's from South Africa, when we moved here,
Yep.
my dad, I always say like his 2 biggest sports was like golf, and he played rugby as well in South
wow.
Africa. So when he was a young buck, but he was a better golfer. But golf's one of those things that takes time, takes patience.
Totally.
I never seem to have that. But rugby, the easiest translation, whatever, was American
football, yeah.
And so when I was really young, my dad started taking me to Broncos games,
Nice.
and I just fell in love with football is like my first love. I fell in love with football, and I fell in love with the Broncos because it was like the thing we did as a family,
Yeah.
and we felt like a long time ago, my dad was like, yeah, it made me feel like American, right? When you're
Totally.
an immigrant and you got a green card and you're starting from scratch. So there's kind of this deep connection to sports, and like that's what I love about sports is that it brings people together from all
Totally.
walks of life, and you
Yes.
never know what everyone's story is, but everyone's got a
Yep.
great story of why they love sports.
Well, and what's so fun about me, the last half dozen years, and it's been crazy times and all, a lot of polarizing opinions and different people in different groups and stuff like that. When you go to a sporting event, an Avs game, a Broncos game, whatever, there's a bunch of people there and none of that other stuff matters. It's about like what teams are you rooting for, and people still get crazy with all that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm totally with you. It's one of my favorite things about sports is that it is this great unifying event.
And you see it like in times of tragedy, right? Where it
Totally.
can bring people together. And
Yeah.
so it's that beautiful underlying kind of storyline of sports.
Well, it's also one of the reasons why I hate when people say it's just a game. It's like, yeah, technically at its core, but like there's so much more to it than
It's just a game. Right.
Yeah. And yeah, what it means to people. For a second there, I thought you were going to say that you got into rugby as a kid. You moved here pretty young from South Africa, right?
Yeah, we moved here. I was just 2, but my parents were born and raised there, so I always felt like I grew up in a very culturally rich home.
Totally, yeah.
Which I felt very, very lucky about.
Yeah. See, so my family moved to Colorado, not from a different country, but also when I was 2, so I've always kind of considered myself, because I don't have memories of living.
Right. What do you say when people ask you if you're a native?
I usually say, we moved here when I was 2, so I consider myself to be yes.
I say for the most part.
Yeah.
I say pretty much.
Because like my family's from New Mexico, and like we would take trips back there. So I remember stuff about New Mexico from the trips, but I do not remember living there. So.
Right. I know. I'm like pretty much, and then they're like, and sometimes I just say yes, because otherwise it's like a weird thing. They're like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, South Africa. And they're like, feels like I'm not trying to like flex here. Like, it's just,
I was going to say that does seem like a conversation starter. Like, yeah. Like when you say that, I'm sure
gets the people going,
You were a Broncos cheerleader.
Yes.
So I actually just listened to an interview that you did during, what is it called? Radio Row, Super Bowl week.
Oh.
You said that you decided to do that because you found that as the closest way to get, or the best way to get as close as possible to the action.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, like with being a Broncos cheerleader, it's such an incredible group of women, and they always say that like everybody's super type A, because this is everybody was either a full-time student or has a full-time job, because it's you get paid maybe part-time money,
Yeah. I've always wondered if you got paid at all or if it was just like the perk stuff.
I think every team's different. The Broncos take care of the women, but it's still, you can't live off of it. It's not a full-time job by any means, but the hours you put in are often more than part-time hours, but you do it, it's like because you love it in a lot of ways and because of the opportunities. Like I got into media because of Broncos cheerleading, and so I mean, that's priceless. That's truly
Totally,
priceless, right?
totally.
And so, every team's different, but the Broncos take care of the women. But when I was in high school, I used to be able to be 18 to try out, which is like bonkers.
What is
when
it
you
now?
Think about 21.
And that seems more
Which
appropriate.
just makes so much more sense. And so I made it straight out of high school.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have no regrets about it, but I think when they changed the age to 21, I was like, that's such a better... You're just a little more sure of who you are. I was like living in the dorms, right? And I had my whole cheerleader uniform like in my tiny little dorm closet. And then I didn't ever feel like I really had like a full college life.
Yeah,
I had a
because you
different
were
college experience because I
constantly-
was going up and down
Yeah.
and at 18 being told, you need to behave like a 25-year-old woman.
Totally.
What the heck does that mean, right? And you're almost under a bigger microscope. And so, but for me, it was one of those things that helped me grow up, I think, a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And it really, I wouldn't change it for the world. But so CU dance team tryout was like the week after. And I didn't really think I was going to make Broncos. But I was like, hey, what the heck? It's great. Like,
Right,
let
fun.
me try out and it'll be good experience for CU tryouts.
Totally.
And I think that's probably part of the reason that I made it is because I was like not expecting to, so I didn't take it that seriously. Right. But we always say like everybody makes it for different reasons. Some girls are just the upper echelon of dancers. I was a good dancer.
Yeah.
But
Dance at Creek.
I was like I'd like to say like a third or a fourth liner on the team.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
If there's 4 lines,
Okay.
I was a third or fourth liner. Right. I was one of the bottom 6.
But to make it at 18, I can't imagine there was a lot of other people your age, or were there a lot of 18-year-olds on the team at that time?
There was a few. There was a lot of like 19, 20-year-olds.
Okay,
There wasn't
yeah.
a ton of 18-year-olds because they didn't love to take people like straight out of high school usually.
Yeah.
But anyway, like long story short, I'm kind of dragging on.
No, sorry, I distracted you.
I know, so somebody actually told me one of the reasons that I made it was because of my interview process.
Oh, wow.
Which
Okay.
is funny because like I hadn't thought about getting in media at that point. I was on the speech and debate team in high school.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it was like
Never afraid of public speaking.
So that was like kind of the asset for me where they're like, wow, she really holds herself more maturely. But for me, I was like, man, I want to be on the sidelines at Broncos games.
Yeah.
Which is actually such a small part of what you do in the big picture because it's 10 games with preseason there, but that was like my impetus for wanting to try out, right? I was like, I want to get as close to the action as I can because I can't actually play the game.
Right.
And so for me,
I think you could play.
That was like the prize.
Yeah. Well, was that something that you thought about like while you were in high school of like, I'm going to try to do that? Or was it kind of like in the moment, this would be an awesome way to get on the field kind of thing?
Well, like in high school, so we would be on the sidelines for like basketball and football games.
Yep.
And I just loved it so much. And as I was graduating, I was like, I want to keep doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the natural transition would be to go to college dance team, which I was going to do. I didn't expect to just make it straight into NFL cheerleading, but I did, and life works out. It all kind of foiled from there in many ways.
Yeah. So literally, the next thing I was going to ask you is how you transitioned from that into media, but it was with the with the experience with Broncos cheerleaders that kind of made you think this would be cool.
There would be there was a lot of kind of like television, radio opportunities. They were small, but every time I did it, I was like, lit up a fire inside me.
Mm-hmm.
But I got into business school, and I was like, this is a good school. Business school. I'm gonna be
safe and
do something
reliable.
right,
Yeah.
and whatever I can do, I can get a job because on my degree it says I went to business school, right? So I never thought of like switching over to journalism or anything.
Yeah.
And then I did Broncos cheerleader in 2 stints. So I did it for 5 years. I took 5 years off, and then I did it for 2 more years.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So like my experience spanned almost a decade.
Yeah. Wow.
I was on it for 7 years, but in 2 stints. And so what happened was when I came back, I had moved to LA. And then I came back, and after like five years away from the team, I tried out again.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women had taken time off, 1 or 2 years, and then they come back. But nobody's taking like 5 years off. Because it's just a long time.
Totally.
And so I tried out again, and I made it again, and I did a radio interview with Andy Lindahl. It was really like my first mentor. And in essence, it was really just about that experience of
being away and then coming back.
Being away and coming back.
I also would like to point out that you said third or fourth liner. I don't know of a lot of people that could take 5 years away, then come back and make the team. You may be selling yourself a little bit short.
I didn't
That's impressive.
upgrade lines. I did still stay the third or fourth line. But no, I mean, I had to like train again. And I started going back to like ballet class and all that stuff. And to make it again. And so it was, I wasn't sure if I was going to. I kind of, put your pride on the line there. But from there, Andy was like, you kind of have a knack for this. And I was like, I feel like deep down I've always wanted to do this, but I've never pursued it.
Yep.
I don't know how. And now I'm like 27-ish. Like it's too late.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And he kind of gave me my first opportunity in terms of literally just going and watching his show and learning the ropes and all of that, this, that, and the other. And eventually, like a board op position came available, which is like ground level. I think people probably do
where
that.
I started,
right, in college even.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
And I was like 27 at the time, and I was like, do I want to do this? And so I took it, and I had to move out of my apartment because I couldn't afford my rent. Because it's entry level. I moved back in with my parents, and I'm so grateful to have such supportive parents. That they're like, hey, if you want to pursue this dream, it took you a long time to figure out what you want to do, but and that's where it started, and it evolved into eventually a producer role and a part-time speaking role, if you will, a little bit of speaking, and then the now general manager at CBS, he was the news director at the time, reached out and was like, hey, have you ever done TV? And I was like, no, but I'd love to.
But I will take it,
And so everything I've done in this business, I've learned by doing. I thought I knew, and I knew so little. And like with television, I mean, I didn't even know, we call them VOSOTs, right? That's when you're talking over video and then you toss to a soundbite. I didn't know what that was. Literally didn't know what that was.
Like the verbiage and stuff.
And I mean, I had such great support of photographers and editors that were like,
well, and Romi, like what I love about your story there is it's similar to mine, where like I always felt like this was something I wanted to do, that I would maybe be good at.
Yeah.
I would have fun doing, but I never really like seriously considered it, because it seems like, I don't want to say like a pipe dream, but like it seems like, how do you even do that?
Right.
How do you even get into that? And I actually did the same thing. I'm being I had to move back in with my parents because I started working as a board op.
Yeah.
And yeah, same thing. I was very grateful that they were willing to support me in that. And I got a wife who, is very supportive of that stuff now too.
And she also makes great chocolate chip cookies.
Glad you liked it. She's making more right now.
Shout out.
Yeah. Shout out, Hannah.
Hannah.
But no, it is crazy. I feel like that is a bit of a theme where this job seems like something that, I could never actually do that.
Right.
But you want to.
Right.
And it's hard to find the right path.
It really is. And I think it's so interesting because I feel like something that I struggled with for a really long time is like that imposter syndrome. Like, I didn't go to journalism school. I'm not classically trained. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. I don't have that like TV voice, whatever that is. I don't have that. I just, which is also the beauty of sports. You kind of just talk like you're talking to
a person,
to friends. But for like the longest time, so trying to establish yourself in a business and then, also for me in a male dominated business as well.
Yes.
And but then it's one of those interesting things that I think so many people deal with that. And so many people get into this business in such quirky different ways.
Yeah.
There's actually so few people, not necessarily so few, but that take that traditional, I went to journalism school, I interned here, I went through all these small markets.
Yep.
Those people still exist, but that's because they know what they want to do. I think there's more people like us who have stumbled into it in a way, or stumbled into an opportunity and then worked our asses off to make the most of said opportunity.
Right.
But I think there's more people like us than not.
I definitely meet fewer people that, did the, I went to this J school and then I did this. And like you said, I meet those people.
Yeah.
They definitely exist in the industry, but way less. The imposter syndrome thing, as I just said, there's fewer of them. There were a couple times early in my career, which I'm still early in my career, but like really young, where I'd be in those conversations. Oh, I went to Mizzou for J school. Oh, I did this.
Right.
I went to this journalism school. Jesse, where did you go? And there was like, it was the first time in my life where I ever felt like, and I feel silly saying this now looking back on it because I am very confident in how I got here, but like, I felt like embarrassed even, like, I actually didn't do that. But looking back on it, like you said, no, I got an opportunity and I worked just as hard as everyone else,
right?
Just not going the same route. And it took me a long time to feel like, no, I belong here.
Yeah.
I work just as hard as all these
Right.
people. And it's hard to convince yourself of that.
Yeah. And I think for me, like, I struggled a lot with starting so late that it was just like, even sometimes I look around and people my age are, well, that's the age that you're on the national scale, right? And it's like, okay, well, I took a different path.
Right.
But, I guess that's true in any walk of life, but sometimes it's hard to be like, no, like where I'm at is great, and where I'm supposed to be, right now.
And maybe just because I'm in a similar, but like I do tend to believe where it's like, no, you'll end up in a better place. You'll end up where you're supposed to be by doing it the right way and doing it at the pace that's right for you instead of what everyone else tells you to do. So now you've made it, you're established. What's the number one moment that you've been there for, that you've gotten to be there for in this awesome job?
Oh man. Well, there's two. The being on the ice when the Avs won the cup.
Yeah.
That ice that, as Nas said, was garbage. It was garbage. So, but I'll tell that and then I'll actually tell the good part about it. But my photog brought spikes for his shoes because he has his huge camera and then he's got the backpack that we transmit TV. And he's been on the ice before with that stuff, and you almost always have spikes because it's so slippery.
So slick.
It was so sludgy and nasty that we didn't even use spikes.
I remember that being the first thought in my head was I was like, whoa, this is not slick at all.
Oh my gosh. It was like mushy in parts. So I always think about that. But being there on the ice, they always say, the Stanley Cup is the hardest championship to win. And it is.
Yeah.
Having been a cheerleader during Super Bowl 50, then
awesome.
Watching the Nuggets last year and the Avs the year before, obviously not the Rockies, but watching every championship so difficult to earn. But there's nothing like hockey.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a battle of attrition. It is unbelievable what they go through. There's a reason why it is the hardest
to
championship to win. And so to see those guys, and you saw it too, they're like pencils by the end, right? I remember Mikko walked out and he had a suit coat and it was just like hanging on him, right?
Off, yeah.
But to play that physical of a game every other night and to see what they go through and to see that team reach the mountaintop and then be on the ice and getting to interview them and like in just these ultimate moments of bliss, right? And like I remember interviewing JT and then he's like, oh, there's my family, kind of like
Gotta go.
politely pushed me away, and I was like, this is the best, right? We camera pans and he picks up his mom. That was just absolutely unreal. And that was my number one moment. It was unbelievable.
And I know I'm a little biased because I've been a hockey guy my whole life, but I do also feel like, and maybe you can attest to this, the trophy presentation ceremony I also think is the best in the NHL as opposed to, because the players get it first. The guys who just went through the war of attrition get it first. And so I'm with you. That was
and you're waiting and you're like, Gabe's definitely gonna give it to EJ, right? And then he does. And then you're like, shades of Sakic Bork. Like it's just, it's so good. And hockey, I always think it's interesting because hockey is, the third, fourth most popular or whatever sport in the States. But because of that, it's like it's so niche and there's such a rich culture about it.
Yeah.
That there's something that's like so special to feel like, not necessarily that you were a part of it, but that you got to bring that to your audience and witness it up there and just see them at this utter bliss was amazing. And then the other great moment was watching the Nuggets win the chip because it was
at home.
It was similar. The two teams, they just were like pure teams, right?
Completely agree.
Like I think pure is the best way I can describe both of those teams. No divas, no superstars. And it's these guys that have been trying for so long, and to see them both reach the mountaintop, and the Nuggets being the first in franchise history. I can't believe I got to experience both those moments in back-to-back years.
And both those teams had superstars that didn't behave like they were, divas, I know is the cliche word, but
no, yeah.
It was ultimate selflessness and all of that. Those are awesome moments. I'm glad those are your moments. How cool is it being on the national crew for CBS at this last Super Bowl?
Oh man, that was incredible. So that was my first Super Bowl as a media member. So like I said, I was on Super Bowl 50 as a cheerleader.
Yes,
which was amazing. Awesome. But obviously a very different experience. So covering it and getting to cover it, it was a great challenge for me too, because covering it for all the CBS stations was, okay, well, we don't want just Denver-focused
Broncos
things,
stuff, right.
which is, well, for me, that was easy to pick the Denver connections.
Easy ties in this one.
Easy. Some of those were of national interest, right? Like Mike and Kyle and Christian and Ed. But finding other stories that were of interest, and even some that were more like entertainment-based, which was really forced me to step out of my shell, because I'm like, oh, wait, like we didn't go to the availabilities at, player availabilities.
Right.
Like that wasn't my job. And I was like, this is so weird to be at a Super Bowl and almost covering some entertainment aspects, but it was so great to challenge myself in that way, and then still find plenty of ways to squeeze in sports stuff and make it sports related. But to be a part of like the biggest event in any sport, is it's such a gift. Like the buzz of being around anything at the Super Bowl was unbelievable. There's people from all over the world, and it's even you're just standing there on Radio Row, and it is just like bustling and through the roof, and anyone and everyone's there.
I mean, your dad said that watching American football in the NFL made him feel more American. Like it's the ultimate. It's like the pinnacle sports event in the U.S. So did you have to come up with all of your stories, all of your hits, or was there anything that they were saying like, hey, we want you to do this?
Well, so my first, we landed, we went straight to Caesars Sportsbook and shot like a gambling piece.
Nice.
And so, and it was, it was like really funny because how much like the world of gambling has changed. Like we were literally in the sportsbook just shooting and like shooting B-roll. And my photographer was like, can I shoot this? And they're like, yep, no, it's fine. They just put up a sign that said filming in progress. And so we were like shooting the people in the sportsbook.
Wow.
Like it's just changed so much where, the people could leave if they wanted to. I interviewed a couple people. They were like more than happy to talk.
That's crazy.
Right? It used to be like, we were like, how are we going to get, video for
Footage.
this piece?
Yeah.
Like it was unbelievable. And we're shooting, the machines and everything. And ironically, the Nuggets game was on at the time. So it like worked out perfectly. We had some background Nuggets music or sound.
Because you used to like not even be able to like pull your phone out.
No.
In that, like those types of settings. Yeah.
It was
That's
like
crazy.
unbelievable. And so, but after that, I thought I was going to get assigned stories like all week.
Yeah.
Then it was like, no, do a story and
Go find your stories.
Go find your stories. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was also another challenge. But just incredible to have that experience, to feel like you're doing something on a little bit of a higher level. Yeah. Was really cool for me.
And especially at that scale.
Yeah.
All right, we've got to talk about the less fun stuff, the Christmas games. Your last two Broncos Christmas games. I was gonna say PTSD moment here. What blew my mind was that you said watching this year's game was worse than last year, and that to me really said something.
Yes.
Not this past Christmas, the Christmas before. Yes. Following your live tweeting of what was happening to you. From what, like Christmas Eve through the 26th, 27th was
something like that.
Was insane. So what happened?
The short version of it is, it was when Southwest had that huge meltdown and they lost everything. So Christmas Eve, I'm flying out to LA for the Broncos Christmas game. I get there and my bag doesn't arrive. I'm like, oh no. And I'm waiting in the line. And then they're like,
on air talent. I'm sure you don't need anything.
Oh, not a big deal. I just flew in sweatpants and a hat, so we're good. And I'm like, oh gosh. And then I start to realize, I didn't realize that everything shuts down on Christmas Eve. Like I always thought like some things stayed open.
Yeah. Essential services type thing.
No. And so I look at my phone and I'm like, everything's closing in like less than an hour.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're talking about to like go get like replacement stuff.
Because I'm realizing I'm probably not going to get my bag. I drop my my backpack off at the hotel, and like the big camera, of course, because I'm lugging that, which is why I had to check my bag. Everyone's like, why are you checking your bag? So I have to clarify. The reason I have to check my bag is because when I travel for TV, I have to carry the big camera, and then I have to carry we call it the backpack that transmits live TV. Yeah. So I don't have any room for like personal possessions.
You have to, So
I have to check it. So I go bolting to the mall. I get there, and they're like, the store's closing in 15 minutes. I went into Nordstrom Rack, and I grabbed a jacket, a pair of pants, a pair of shoes, and like sort of some makeup, but there wasn't makeup really. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I just was like, please let it fit. Please let it fit. I didn't have
no time to try on.
No time to try on. It fit. Thank goodness.
Nice.
Otherwise,
know your sizes. Good for you.
Right. Yeah. I know. Otherwise I would have had to literally just go in my sweatpants. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I like blow dried my hair with the hotel blow dryer, which, like, if you know, for ladies, this is a nightmare.
It's not the same.
It's like frizzes all over the place. I had like the nastiest makeup like at the bottom of my work bag. That's just like, I was like,
It's been in here for 5 years.
Like, this is not sanitary. So I like just look like an absolute mess at the game. Anyway, then we have the game itself,
which was,
I like to call the Christmas Day Massacre. We all remember Patrick Starr roasting Russell Wilson.
Oh my God, I forgot
it's
about
an
that.
all-timer.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he wanted to cook, right?
That's what he wanted to cook. Which, by the way, at the Super Bowl, the one I didn't get starstruck, except I saw Patrick Starr in real life, and I was like,
"That's awesome."
And he was wearing like Patrick Starr colored shoes.
That's
and amazing. I was like, and he's like a big guy.
Is he really?
Oh yeah, he's probably like 6'2", 6'3", and I was like. Like that was my biggest starstruck moment at the Super Bowl. But yeah, so then we have the Super Bowl, or that game. Nathaniel Hackett gets fired the next morning.
Yes.
But we get back from the game, and we have a feeling he's going to get fired. Our flight gets canceled. We're like, okay. So we get up. All the flights the next day get canceled.
Yep.
So we get up the next day. This is the worst part. I've been wearing my contacts since Saturday. Yes. And there's no
goodness.
Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. There's nothing was open.
Nothing.
I couldn't even find a CVS.
Yeah.
So I didn't have contact solution, which, if you know, is like, this is like pure torture. Like, just put knives in my eye. I think that, so you get the headache, the pressure headache.
Totally, yeah. I'm sure your vision was starting to get a little fuzzy. Yeah.
So I finally get contact solution on the Monday, but I have the same pair of contacts.
Right.
So that was honestly, I think, the worst part. We drive to Vegas. All the flights were canceled.
LA.
So we drive to Vegas. Everybody else had the same idea. Vegas to LA takes like 4 hours.
Yeah, not bad.
It took 9.
Oh my goodness.
It took us 9
hours. Oh my goodness, I did not think you were going to.
No.
I thought that was going to be like, that wasn't the bad part. Oh my gosh.
9 hours on that little 2-lane road.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Then we like finally get to Vegas, and we can't get a flight out of Vegas till the next day. And I'm like, Vegas is the last place you want to be in when you're in a bad mood, when you haven't changed your contacts,
stuck,
or your clothes. I didn't have like a change of clothes.
Right.
I didn't get socks till like Monday.
And I'll say, by the way, for people that aren't keeping up at home, bag never showed up.
Oh, bag never showed up. And again, this whole disaster, like, it would have been fine if I was just going to a ball game, but I had to look presentable for television.
Right.
So
you have to be on air.
So the whole thing. My appearance was not as bad as the product on the field, actually. We can put it that way. Eventually, I get back to the airport and DIA, and I'm like, I go to the lost and found. They're like, your bag's here. And I was like, oh, great. Can we get it?
Can I have it?
No, we scanned it in, so we have to send it to L.A. When it gets to L.A., we'll FedEx it back to you.
Seriously? They're going to ship it back to you?
And I was like, aren't you just, one, wasting a tremendous amount of money here?
Right.
B, what?
Yeah,
what?
That's insane. I'm here. Give it to me.
And I was like, when's it going to get scanned through? They're like, we don't know, because there's like such a backlog of bags. And I was like, I'm never going to get this bag back.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have, except Southwest tried to declare it like a weather emergency or something, that it all happened.
Yeah.
And whoever's in charge, the government, I don't know, was like, we're calling baloney on you.
I remember that, yeah.
Everything you lose, you have to reimburse.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden, everybody's bags started. But literally, the bag, they sent it to LA, and then it came to my door in like a FedEx. They shipped back an entire suitcase. Like, what a waste of money. What are we doing?
Yeah, especially because you were there.
Yeah.
Just give it to me. You have a huge backlog. Let me remove one from your backlog.
I'm happy to take it from you. Nope.
Jeez.
And so, I got the bag, like, I felt like 3 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole trip, when I tell it now, it doesn't sound as bad as when it.
That sounds
in
horrific.
Person.
Sounds horrific.
It was horrible. And I get anxiety every time I check my bag for work now.
Yeah, totally. Because, I mean, you told that story in 3-4 minutes. That was a 3-4 day endeavor for you. Like, doing, more traveling now, like, I can't even imagine. That sounds horrible.
And it's different when you're traveling for work, because it's not like, oh, forget it, I'll just wear what I'm wearing.
Right, yeah. And then especially, like you said, if you were running stuff behind the scenes or whatever, but no, you got to be on I guess it wasn't the Super Bowl, but Christmas Day, nationally televised games, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not fun. And somehow the game this year was worse.
And somehow the game this year, which is so crazy to think about, and I think because, like, last year that game was like, that was the tipping point.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for it to happen. I mean, that season was such a clown show. You know, I don't need to tell.
This year, you were waiting for it to get better.
But like this year was like you had stuff to play for, and to blow it to a 3-win team, right? Like in that situation, at home, I was like, this year you're supposed to be building towards something.
Yeah.
You know, even if it wasn't the playoffs for this year, it's like, what the hell was that? Right? Where there was, now you have a way more put together operation. It's actually functional. It's not just like
and you feel like you've got a direction and you found a way to blow it.
To lose that game, that one felt worse.
Yeah.
And, you know, people are like recency bias. I'm like, no, because, again, the one against the Rams was embarrassing.
But it was half expected.
But it was like, you knew it was going to happen, and it just, things finally boiled over. This one was like...
The expectations were there. I talk about that all the time with the Avs. Like, when you have expectations, things are different.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm taking a lot of your time, so I got a few more. I'll move through a little bit quicker.
I'm here all day.
Woo! All day. Got nothing. Nowhere else to be. First lead sports anchor, female sports anchor in Denver. Was that something that was ever like, that would be awesome to do, or has it just been the path is?
Yeah, no, I never thought about it because Michael Spencer, who was the main sports anchor at CBS when I was the weekend sports anchor, I never thought Michael was going to leave, you know, and he never really had a vision to leave Colorado necessarily.
Yeah.
But then they put him on the track to move up to the main news anchor, which is funny because like I could never imagine being in news.
No.
You know,
me either.
I'm too goofy and weird, and but he started kind of, he was, you know, he wasn't like the sure fit or whatever, but they were definitely hoping that maybe he could step into that role, and he's just been absolutely excellent.
Amazing, yeah.
And so when they moved him, it was like, oh, like I had thought like, yeah, I had just never thought about that as a reality. I just thought Michael and I were going to be a team for, you know, however long. And so when the opportunity came about, I was really excited about it. I was like nervous about it, you know. It was one of those things where I felt like I had started to establish myself in the community.
Totally, yes.
And so for me, I was like, well, you know, I don't think people would see it differently. But like my news director made a great point. She's like, we're going to find out if Denver's ready or not.
Yeah.
You know, which is a fair thing because there never had been one, which is like crazy. It's like in 2023, you know, but most certainly not the last, right?
Yeah.
And so
paving the way.
Yeah, and the way that you just see the Denver sports community was, you know, all about it, you know, because of the work that I had put in and what they had followed to that point was probably the most gratifying piece.
Well, and what I was going to say, and I hope this doesn't come off wrong, but like I think you were great. I'm with you. Like it's weird that was the first, but like I think your personality and the way that you kind of endear yourself to people, and you really do seem to have like you know, whatever, doesn't bother me. Yeah. You know, I'm here to take care of what I'm here to take care of, and like I think you were a great person to have be the first.
Thank you.
Again, as much as it shouldn't have been the first.
Yeah.
I think you were a great person for that, and someone that I think a lot of people can really look to and be like, I can do that.
Thank you.
I can do that. And so I think I was just having known you a bit and got to know you a bit. I was so excited when all of that happened because I was like, yes, that makes perfect sense.
That's awesome. That means a lot. Thank you so much. And it means a lot coming from people that have worked around and worked with, you know?
Yeah.
But I always thought like the thing was, I've told the story before, but Amy Trask, who used to be like Al Davis's right-hand woman, when women were not in front offices in the NFL, right? Yeah. Like she'd go to owners' meetings when it was just her and the old boys club, you know, and she'd go with Al, but she wrote a book, and one thing, I interviewed her in my early days in the radio, and I asked her, like, you know, how did you deal with being a woman, especially at that time? And she said, you know, anytime I walked into a room, she's like, I was there to do my job. And if you were going to waste your energy on my gender, that's your problem. I'm going to use my energy doing the best job I can. And it was like the light changing moment.
I remember you saying that.
Where it was like, oh my gosh. And so I think a lot of women in this business struggle with the, you know, where, you know, it's you go through like phases almost, you know, and you go through the part of like fighting to prove yourself, a lot of it, like part of it because you're a woman. But I think when you start to really elevate and break through is when you just are here to do your job. Yes, and it's like, I just am here to be a sports reporter, anchor, whatever, that sports person, you know? Yeah. And as soon as I kind of released that and just started trying to do the best job I could, that's when everything changed, you know? Because I think that there are a lot of women that you go into everything being like, oh, it's because I'm a woman, and it can hinder you if, you know, you don't look at it the right way. And so I felt so empowered by that, which is why I always love to share that story, because I hope that I look at a lot of other successful women, right? The Erin Andrews or Taylor Rooks or all of those people, and you can see how they just handle their job as a professional. Not as a professional woman, just as a professional.
Right.
And I feel like that's always the goal.
How hard was that for you to change your mindset to not trying to be, you know, the first or, you know, whatever, but just saying, I'm here just like everyone else? Was that difficult to do, or did you find it like freeing?
Well, I felt like for me, it was almost felt extra challenging because I was coming off the heels of being a Broncos cheerleader. So there's the stereotypes that go with it, right? And there's the, oh, she just wants to be it's just a cheerleader who wants to be on TV, right? and people don't think you're smart. And all of these things are so true. And of course, you're dancing in not a lot of clothes, right? On Sundays, and people see that, and you post those pictures. And so people have this perception like you're a little bit of a ditz who, oh, she probably just wants to be on TV talking about sports, or she wants to be in the locker room, and she's a jersey chaser, right? All that. So I really felt that pressure a lot. And it was one of those things that was really hard because I felt like I had to almost hide away from like this who I was.
Totally.
And
cover all that up.
And it felt like I was being like almost disloyal to myself because that's how I got here. That's how I got this opportunity. That's how, you know, Andy Lindahl noticed me and then started mentoring me, right? It was like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of that, but I had to kind of stop posting pictures, and I was kind of advised to like kind of not talk about that much, and that was really hard for me. But you know, I was like, all right, you know, trying to establish myself as, if that will help, I guess, establish myself. And so in many ways, though, it's come so full circle where I can talk about it now, where I'll post throwback pictures and I'm so proud and I don't have to. The comments have changed. There was a lot of comments when I first started, right? Oh, you're just a cheerleader. Oh, I know why you got this job. Blah, like over and over and over again. And so to see the difference in responses now is really gratifying. And that goes back to
people thinking it's cool now that was what you did and not like this detractor.
And a lot of people being like, I didn't know that you did that. That's so cool, right? And so kind of the evolution it's such a full circle moment every time that happens. But Jeff Legwald, who works for ESPN, who was one of my early mentors as well, his advice to me very early on, he said, put the work in, because if you do the work, people can't mess with you. And so I was like, okay. So, you know, that was my biggest thing, is just trying to do the work, do the best that I could. And the hard thing too was like on TV, usually you're messing up in, you know, these small markets, a 100 market, a top 80 market, not a top 20 market, that you're making all these mistakes on, and people are like, look at this bimbo. Why is she on TV? And so there was so much pressure, I think, to prove that I deserve to be here, along with the imposter syndrome, like we talked about, and not going to journalism school. So all of those things were really, really challenging. And then being a female and feeling like trying to prove that I belong in this world. But when I did have that conversation with Amy Trask, that was such a freeing moment, because it was the first time where I was like, I'm almost feel like I'm holding myself back a little bit. Like being like, you know, oh, am I treated differently because I'm a woman? Like going into places thinking like that. That was actually holding me back, right?
Right. You were like more guarded. You were expecting it.
Right. Or like expecting, you know, if somebody was kind of crappy to me, like, oh, it's because I'm a woman. Like maybe guarded's not the right word. Maybe that's not why, Romy, you know? And I think that it's like a hard thing. You know, a lot of females you have to find that place of confidence. And when I had, again, that conversation with Amy Trask, it was like, I just got to go in and do my job. Yeah. And if somebody's not going to like me because I'm a woman, that's their problem.
That's their problem.
If they don't like me because the work's not good, that's my problem. Wow. And so it was such a life-changing moment, and it luckily happened pretty early on in my career, and it became, for me, I feel like so proud to be the first, female lead sports anchor, more as someone who is a tiny cog in this long wheel of accomplishments that women will make along the way, right?
Yep.
And to be the first but not the last, right?
Yes.
But I think a big reason that I was able to get there was because I stopped thinking of myself as a woman in sports and just a person in sports. And that doesn't fit for everybody, right? I think that everybody, but for me, that was where I felt like I could just be that, tomboy girl that was playing shirts and skins in the street, right? Who loves sports and her passion for sports and is not hindered by gender or this, that, or the other.
Well, and it's so funny because, again, I believe you and I have had at least a part of that conversation before. But when you were telling that story, my brain it went back to tomboy playing shirts and skins outside with all the boys, of like this mentality of I'm just here with everyone else.
Yeah.
And, I'm just like, I just find that so interesting. And it's, Romy, it's so interesting for me to have this conversation with you. Cause like, I coming into sports, everything we talked about earlier, the imposter syndrome stuff, it always felt like, yes, there's hurdles and, social media is crazy. There's people that don't like you for all kinds of reasons, right? Regardless, man, woman, tall, short, whatever, there's all kinds of crazy people out there. But it is just so crazy, not to sound too like, high and mighty here, but like I've never really, like you were saying, oh, she's just chasing jerseys. Oh, she just wants to be, she just wants more airtime. Like that's stuff that like I never had to like battle through that type of stuff, but coming the path that you did, I imagine that was a huge, how much did you, I try hard not to look at comments. Like I try to talk with people because, we have amazing supporters in this line of work. And I try to, talk with people like that. But I have found for me, one of the best ways mentally to deal with this job in this industry is just stay away from a lot of that. Did you find that was something that you had to do or was that?
Yeah. And I think it's so hard because, and the truest statement is like, you could get 40 comments being like, you're awesome. And we're having this really insightful conversation. And then there's that one person who doesn't even have, a profile picture, right? They got the egg avatar or whatever. And they say something nasty. And like that one stands out. And I've gotten so much better.
Well, it's always nasty. It's always personal.
And it's always personal. Right. And so it's like, and so I started like, I feel like I don't know, like there will be times I'll go through and I'll get like wrapped up in the comments and I have to like step back and be like, stop.
Yes.
Stop. Right. Because you're never going to win with those people. And I think there's a piece of being like, no, let me reason with you and explain and whatever. And that's never going to happen.
Yeah. You're never
They've decided they don't like you. They don't like you for whatever reason, and nothing's going to change anything, right? Well, what's like the phrase, like you wrestle with pigs, you'll get mud on your face, or whatever it is, right? And it's like, but early on, I used to get so many comments, just about the cheerleader piece and about that and about, and feeling like, the hardest part was feeling like, no, I'm working my ass off here and you're making these comments about me like sleeping my way to the top, and honestly be a lot easier. Maybe I should have done that.
I wouldn't be as tired. I wouldn't be running around as crazy if I was doing everything you guys are saying. Right.
But then it's like, what are you trying to prove to those people? Right. And you have to remember to like pick the love over the hate because you can't win with those people.
Well, one of my things that really has helped me with that, again, different types of comment, but it's just negative feedback, is why am I going to let this person ruin my day?
Yeah.
I don't know this person. I don't, to your point, I don't know what their face is. I don't know what their name is. This is some random person on the internet that has never met me. I've never met them. Why am I going to let them dictate my day?
Well, and what's so crazy is I felt like it kind of mellowed out for a few years. And like, it was like, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't making waves. I don't know. And then it flared up like insane this past football season with Deion Sanders coming to Colorado. And it's a microcosm of what he deals with on an everyday basis.
Yes.
I have never seen someone who it is so polarizing. People either love him or they hate him. And the hate is so strong and the love is so strong. But all of these people who, hate him for silly reasons were basically coming after all the beat reporters or whatever,
covering him,
and covering him. And I got, after the TCU game, I had some schmeagle come after me on Twitter. I don't even know who this guy is, but he has a band of followers. Basically, this guy just like raking me over the coals because I was just like, I posted an emotional post. I was like, I'll never forget this day. I'm also a CU alum. So it was like, it was so exciting. Everything about it was just thrilling. And all of these people started coming after me, right? And, have fun working at Hooters and all this. And then just like all these people, just nasty, like the same group of people, like week after week, like nasty and, being like, oh, just keep glazing Dion or whatever. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. And it was really hard because
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then it's just the big picture of like, you look at like his comments and the people that want him to fail are like, they cannot stop watching every single thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Yeah.
But like, so that kind of became another, I had to kind of like deal with it again, all over again. And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not going to stop posting. I do support Deion Sanders and what he's doing in Colorado. I know people feel different ways about it, but I've had the privilege of doing the show with him, and he's a remarkable person. Yeah. I love what he's doing, and as someone who went to CU, to see people talking about CU everywhere you go, I support it, and I have no problem. But like I had to like, it's like I get crap all the time still for supporting it, and it's crazy.
That's crazy to me.
Crazy.
I would never have expected that.
Yeah.
I would have actually even thought the opposite. I would have never expected that you said that led to kind of like unearthing negativity.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you what it was like getting to be around it, because you got to be around him a lot this year. What was that? I mean, the air around him seems to be just different.
Unbelievable. I've never been around someone like that, and to have the privilege of getting to do the coach's show with him
it was amazing.
It just absolutely incredible for so many reasons. I think personally, to like get to know this guy who is just such a charismatic person. He is an icon in the Black community, to see what he's done there, and the way that truly CU's football audience has changed has been
absolutely
incredible. As someone who went to CU, and we always joke, Kenan Thompson on SNL was right. He's like, right, it's an HWCU, right? So to see him making the CU fan base so culturally diverse is like unbelievable. But to get to know him as a person is such a gift that like I'm going to be grateful for the rest of my life. And getting to see him, we would have players on the show, and how he interacts with these players. Yeah. And he's a truly caring person, and he asks
what it seems like.
Everything with intention. There's not, he does carry a lot of flash with him, but a tremendous amount of substance.
I pride myself on being able to read people when they're full of shit.
Yeah.
And I've never once gotten that sense from that he's for show, or he's doing any of it for attention, or like it all seems extremely genuine.
Oh yeah, totally. And he's like, it's funny because I've seen him like off campus or whatever, and I'm like, I wonder if, like, I saw him at a Nuggets game, and I was like, I wonder if like Prime will even like give me the time of the day. Like I didn't kind of expect it. He's like, hey girl, we like walked down the hallway and we're talking, and he's like, how are your parents? And he did the most amazing thing that, again, I got by this band of haters that I got roasted for because I posted about it. But he's got his bracelets, the smart, fast, tough, disciplined character.
Yes.
It's his motto. So I was like really nervous when we did our first promo shoot, and I was like, look, this show, it's gonna be smart, fast, tough, disciplined character.
Nice.
And then he gave me the bracelet. He's like, oh, I'm gonna gift you this bracelet. And I was like, I gotta give it to my dad. He's like, oh, so I'll give you one for your dad. So I gave it to my dad. My dad has not taken it off.
Nice.
He wears it all the time. It's one of those like little rubber bracelets. Yeah. So I showed Prime the video like the next week. And my dad's had a lot of health issues the past probably like 4 years. Yeah. And you can see it's visible. So, Deion's like, you got to bring him up to the show. And I like thought he was joking. I was like, okay. And then the next week he's like, where are your parents? And I was like, oh my gosh, like you were serious about it?
Yeah.
And people aren't like, we're not allowed to like bring people up for the show. It's a closed set. And I brought him up the next week. And I was still like nervous about it. Yeah. He walks in the door. He walks straight past the set, goes straight over them. First thing, he and he's talking to them, and they're having this conversation. And afterwards, my dad said, he's like, at that moment, he made me feel like the most important person in the world.
Yeah.
I'm like getting emotional thinking about it. And it was just like such an incredible thing to do. And he did it out of the goodness of his heart.
Right. Yeah.
And he knew it would make a difference and it would mean something. And it was just like so kind. And so then I posted about it, and then that band of people on Twitter were like, oh my gosh, you should be taken off the beat. You shouldn't be allowed to like report. And I'm like, why? Because I'm highlighting that this man did something so
Right.
wonderful for
Right.
someone.
That he didn't need to.
Unprompted. He didn't need to. And he does that all the time for so many people. Or
Right.
like you see his relationship with Peggy, which everybody
Yeah.
at CU just loves. But it's like, he doesn't have to show Peggy the time of day, right? And he's just he's a truly genuine person. So
That's an amazing story. I have to imagine that was a pretty proud parent moment for your folks at that moment. Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible, and it was incredible for me to see the way he interacted with my parents and how they were just like, I mean, my dad talked about it he told all of his friends. And we took a picture and he showed all of his friends, and it was just to be able to share that moment too.
Totally.
With my parents is like, again, something I'm going to treasure for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And so that's just like a small thing. The most amazing story was the first player guest we had on was Jimmy Horn, and like it was great with the players because I just tried to like tee him up and like let him go. That's the idea. Like stay out the way. And Dion starts telling the story about how he talked to Jimmy's dad after the TCU game. Jimmy's dad's in prison. He talked to him on the phone, and on the airplane back. And he's telling the story on air, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And he's talking, and Jimmy's dad said like, this is why I wanted you to play for Prime, right? Because he's done everything that he said he was going to do. And he's been like a father to you. And I think Prime, when we talk about, he's not going to the NFL because being a father figure, molding these young men is really important to him.
Okay,
and you can do that in college.
And so you don't think it's one of those like he's doing this because that's one thing that's a popular opinion. He's doing this to get to the next gig. You don't think it's like that?
I don't think so. The NFL's like not for him, right? There's so much more leeway in college to recruit all of this stuff, right? You can't do the recruiting in the NFL,
right?
I always joke, people are like, well, he says he's not hard to find. I was like, what is the salary cap? Okay, so it's just not the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And can you imagine like? I mean, we would love it, but like Prime at the podium every week when coaches talk on Wednesday, like no, the NFL. I don't think they want that either.
Yeah.
But I think that honestly, like helping young men grow into the next phase of their life and to be stand-up men is important to him, and you can do that so much more in college, And who knows, right? Maybe he could be a position coach or something one day, but it wouldn't be. I don't think he would get as much. I feel like when he's done with college, he'll retire.
Interesting.
Whenever that is. But
that's good. And I like that. Like I like that he's in that kind of developing people. I love developing and seeing people grow and do their next thing.
Well, even think of like the access, right? That like his kids get on YouTube. Like you're not doing that in NFL practices.
No.
It's totally different.
And what you said there about like, I don't know if the NFL, not that the NFL wouldn't want Deion Sanders, but like everything that comes, that he does as part of his brand and all that may be hard.
It just feels so much more suited to college, right? And he's lit the college football world on fire, and it's so fun to be at the center of it.
I'm sure.
I would say the other piece of that too, and then I'll wrap this up, is like professionally getting to do that show has been incredible for me because I've never met someone who fills a room like that.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm sure.
Like Deion Sanders. It's he almost sucks the air out in a way, because it's just like you said, he's got this aura around him. So for me, going into this show, to not shrink in that presence.
I was going to say, it's got to be hard to sit opposite.
It was really hard, but to not be like someone I'm not. And, because I felt
trying to match him.
I could tell like from when we started, he was kind of like, you gotta earn my trust and respect. And I could feel that relationship growing week to week.
Nice. That's awesome.
So professionally, it's been such an incredible experience for me as well because, we interview all sorts of guys, but no one like him. There's no one, and no one carries that air. Like him, of anyone I've interviewed since I've started this job.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about that sometimes. Like, there are certain players. It's like, ooh, that's a tough player to talk to. Ooh, yeah, that's a cool guy that you get to.
Yeah.
But and having never been able to sit down with Deion, I would imagine that he is unique in terms of it's not that he's intimidating. It's not that he's this, but like you said, the way he fills a room.
Yeah.
Is, he's kind of like a figure.
Yeah.
Do you have a roadmap? What's next, or are you just going at this the way you've kind of spent the last?
That's such a good question, Jesse, because I feel like I struggle with that a lot right now. I'm at a weird place where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this whole career has evolved in a way that I never expected.
Yeah.
And I never was like, I want to do that job, or this or that. But it has come into that. And so it's like, I would love to continue growing and challenging myself. And I mean, it would be great to, take another step and go to a higher level. And sure, I think we all have those like national dreams, right?
Totally.
But I don't know, one, how to pursue them. And two, I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. Like,
Right.
some people have such a clear picture.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what next looks like.
Totally.
And then I'm also trying to remember to like, what I'm doing right now is so great. And we're so lucky here in Colorado. Like we've got the Avs and the Nuggets, and even when they're terrible, the Broncos are entertaining. And we've got Deion Sanders in Boulder. Like this is such a time that I don't ever want to regret. Oh, I was always trying to think about
don't want
what's
to wish
next.
it away.
And wish when we live in such an amazing time. And I hear a lot of people being like, wow, it must be cool covering sports in Denver. Yeah, it's great, man. There's so many great teams, and it's a great fan base. And so I don't know. I wish I like, but I like wish I knew. I struggle with that, right? The living in the present, and also being like, what do I want to do?
Yeah, what do I want to do when I grow up? Yeah.
So if you have any answers, let me know.
Well, no, I mean, it's just we've spent this whole conversation and really, Romy, again, not to. Here's a story about me. But like, I feel like there's a lot of what you've said that I feel very similar. Of like, I don't know, but I've kind of done this so far, and I've gotten here, and I feel pretty good about it, and so we'll keep doing the same thing and see what happens next. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing with you, and I think there's so many different places that you can end up. With the stuff that you just did with CBS, I think is, amazing. And I think you're so talented that you're going to do great things. But I love that you don't have that plan, because I think people do spend a lot of time saying, nope, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go do that, and blah, blah, and you miss all of the stuff that you get to do.
Yeah.
I was just telling Blake, we went to the All-Star game in Toronto. All-Star games are always kind of to be at, but I told him, I said, make sure at least once this weekend you stop and take in the room around you, because you're going to be standing there and suddenly there's going to be Sidney Crosby and there's going to be Alex Ovechkin, and over there there's Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux just walked in, and but like just stop and appreciate it for a second, because it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy and we're running around, but appreciate it because these are moments that are awesome to be a part of, and I just never want to wish any of that away.
Right. It's so true. I feel like it's part of our society where we're just rushing to the next. And there's so much that you have to stop and just like enjoy right now. Right. And like you said, you're naming all those people. Oh, by the way, there's Nathan McKinnon. Right. But we take that for granted. There's Nikola Jokic. Yeah. Okay. Right. We're covering two all-time greats right now.
You didn't even mention Cale Makar.
How dare I? Or the forever underrated Mikko, because he's on a team with Cale and Nate, but like, you know what I mean? So it's like, you gotta like,
to your point, there's so many that I used to be so jealous of Pittsburgh Penguin hockey fans, or, New England Patriot, fans. It's like, they get to watch this greatness every day. And now I have to remind myself, like, we're right in the middle of that with multiple sports.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy.
Coming on the heels of the Peyton Manning era. Like, it's amazing.
That feels like so long ago.
It's 8 years. 8 years, which is crazy. Should the Broncos keep Russell Wilson?
No.
It's time to move on, right?
It's time to move on. Like, I know it's a lot of money, and if you're going to be book smart or whatever, but at some point, no, because he's not the future. So just cut ties, just move on. And also, like, can you imagine how truly awkward it would be if they actually did keep him around for another year after it's like, it's very clear Sean Payton doesn't want him. And like, then he goes on, Brandon Marshall's podcast, which was a great podcast, by the way, but then Russ kind of giving out his detail. Can you imagine if they had to live with each other for another year?
Well, I was gonna say, forget even the on the field stuff. Like, I think it's too fractured behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's like the hard thing with the Broncos is like it's compounded, right? It's 8 years of compounded, so fans are pissed because it's like it's another year of failure, and so it's only year 2 of Sean Payton, but everybody's like, okay, but it's 8 years.
Well, and it feels so stagnant. Like, they went, what was it, 5 years in a row finishing with the exact same record or something like that? Like, it just feels like a lot of tire spinning, and we're not actually going anywhere. But it's
crazy.
We'll
so
see. At least we'll have all summer to talk about it.
I know.
Can't wait.
Well, That's why you like the Avs and the Nuggets to go far, and
Yeah,
then you don't, and then you'll have a lull.
Deep as possible.
And our
remove the lull.
Poor
as
little
much.
Rockies are just hanging there.
Great ballpark.
Oh, what a venue.
Romy, I've kept you way longer than I intended, but that's because I love chatting.
That was
with
my
you.
intention.
So perfect. Thank you so much. I know you got to get down to the studio, but I'd love for you to come back here and do this again. And just anytime I get to see you is always great. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun, like talking and realizing these similarities that we didn't realize, about each other. Even being born and moving here when we were 2, but then the work aspect. This has been such a gift. So thank you so much. This is such a treat. Anytime.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I really do, not to sound weird or cheesy, but you're someone that I look up to, and so getting to hear that you have a similar, you've gone through a similar path as me is it makes me feel very good about what I'm doing, and I'm just grateful to know you. So thank you so much. This was a blast.
Can't wait for the next one.
Awesome. Thanks. Like I said, always a pleasure being able to chat with Romi in any capacity, let alone being able to sit down and chat with her for as long as we did. Very generous with her time. Cannot say thank you enough.
So many interesting stories
that
we usually don't hear.
Totally.
So happy that you got her here.
Yeah, me too. And that's really what a lot of this is about. We, in the media, sports media specifically, she tells a story about her Christmas debacle. You normally only see that through whatever whatever tweets are front facing. So no, it was great to have her in here and just get her perspective on, like I said, a crazy industry that I'm very grateful we get to work in and we get to meet people like Romi. So I think I'll do it. Show next week will be a little bit later in the week. I actually won't be back from Nashville until Tuesday. My wife and I are a little bit early celebrating our 1-year wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we're gonna take an extra day in Nashville to just kind of hang out and celebrate. She's gonna meet me out there. So it'll be great. So I won't be back till Tuesday. So the show will be a little bit later in the week. Next week, but we will definitely be coming back to you. I got another great guest lined up for you guys for next week. So for Jay, I'm Jesse. Big thanks again to Romi Bean coming and hanging out with us. But hey, this is fun. We'll see you guys next week.